3 years ago, I divorced my wife, with whom I had been married for 2 years. I found out that she had slept with a stripper at a bachelorette party, but continued to see him from time to time while we were married. I wasn't so devastated that I couldn't go on with my life, but it hurt for a while. I loved her. However, the divorce turned out to be very beneficial for me, which helped, but it was a bit of a scandal because her parents are very wealthy. We got married when I was 22 and she was 25. I probably rushed into it. We met at a club and immediately felt that there was chemistry between us. My name is Lucas Jacobs. My ex-wife is Kara. I'm an ordinary guy with brown hair and blue eyes, 180 centimeters tall and weighing 86 kilograms. I'm very calm and never get angry. I like to be in control. I'm cool-headed and calm even when I'm angry. Kara is blonde with greenish eyes. She is about 165 centimeters tall and has a great figure. Her old, wealthy parents pressured her to settle down and give them grandchildren. I should have seen that as a warning. I had just finished college and was starting a career in banking. I got a job at a large bank, and life was just beginning, and it was starting well. We fell in love quickly, but at the time it didn't seem rushed. I really wanted a family, and her family was pressuring her to start a family. So it all worked out. 6 months into the relationship, I went to talk to her father. Harrison Fields was and remains an imposing man. Very wealthy, very old-fashioned. Imagine all the stereotypes you've seen about rich people, and he fits them all. He drank brandy by the fireplace, smoked only Cuban cigars, drank only rare whiskey from some obscure place in Scotland, and even drove a Rolls-Royce. He was like a cartoon character, but for some reason he loved me. When we were first introduced, he acted like a protective father toward me. He took me into his office and said, "What are your intentions toward my daughter, young man?" I even smiled and replied, "Sir, I'm going to marry her and have 6 children." He smiled and said, All right. What do you do?" "I work in the secondary market at one of the 2 largest banks," I replied. "I mainly sell pools of loans that we issue to investors and service companies that buy securities." "Ah, a banker and financier," he said. "For many years, banks have been one of our greatest assets. That's wonderful." The meeting with her mother went even better. As soon as she heard that I wanted a large family and wasn't going to put it off, I couldn't do anything wrong. So there I was, sitting in Mr. Fields's office, waiting for him to deign to grace me with his presence on that gloomy Saturday afternoon when Mrs. Fields asked, "Is this what I've been hoping for?" "Yes, ma'am, it is," I replied. "Oh, wonderful," she exclaimed. "You have my blessing, and I know Harry adores you." "Thank you, Mrs. Fields." No, my child," she said. "Call me Eve. You're going to be part of our family. Oh, my goodness, I'm so excited." "Hello, young man," boomed Mr. Fields. "How can I help you?" "Sir," I began, "I'm asking for your permission to ask Kara to marry me." "Ah, well, there are many complications in this family. Are you sure you're ready for them?" "Yes, sir, I am sure. I will sign a prenuptial agreement to protect your family's money and property. That is not what I am after." "Young man, this family is not just about wealth. It is a commitment to charity, a commitment to the thousands of people who work for us and depend on us every day. There must be no scandals. You must lead a clean life and always maintain a strong positive image in society. We already know you have no skeletons in your closet. We thoroughly vetted you after Kara brought you here the first time." This was news to me, but I should have expected it. In a softer, much less intimidating tone, he shook my hand and said, "Son, I bless you." And from the poorly concealed expression on my dear wife's face, I can see that she does too. "Good luck, Lucas. You'll need it." He smiled at me, turned, and walked out. After 6 months of wedding planning in which I literally had no say, I stood in front of 350 relatives, friends, and business associates and married the love of my life. I almost called off the wedding. I found out about the stripper because my sister was there, and she had a video of her performing a sex act in public and walking away with him into a separate room, waving a pack of condoms at her friends. The next morning, she came to me and broke the news. She said, "Luke, I'm sorry. I can't keep this a secret. If you ever find out about this later and realize that I was there and didn't tell you, I know you'll be angry with me. She was very drunk. Maybe you can forgive her?" "Sis, I doubt it. I knew she was a little loose when we first met, but I expect fidelity." So I watched the video. Marcus the stripper was huge, and every muscle was carved out of stone. I emailed the video to myself and saved it to a flash drive. Then I went to visit my soon-to-be ex-fiancée. I was sitting in Mr. Fields' office again on another dreary Saturday. It seemed like it always rained when I went there. Kara walked in hungover and said, "Honey, can't this wait? I'm really busy." "No, it can't. Do you want to explain your actions with Marcus to me?" "Who's Marcus?" Eva asked, walking into the room. "Mom, please leave," Kara said. "You know what? No, Eva, stay. This concerns the whole family, and you'd better hear it now," I said. "Kara," I said, "please explain why you slept with the stripper from your party, please." Eva screamed, "What?" Kara cried, then pulled herself together and got angry. "Who told you?" "Who?" "Oh, damn it, it was your sister, wasn't it? Well, she can go to hell." "What now? Are you going to leave me? Call off the wedding? It was the last time, forget about it." Eva sat there in shock. I said, "Yes, the wedding is off," and I left. Later that day, there was a knock at my door. It was Mr. Fields. "Young man," he began, "what is this nonsense about calling off the wedding? Some unfounded accusations against my daughter? You have no proof, and you should be careful with your accusations." I replied, "Sir, with all due respect, you're wrong." I didn't dare tell him he was wrong. "I have a video. Take a look." I played the video on my phone. "Turn that off," he said in horror. "Lucas, please reconsider. It was a one-time fling, and she was clearly drunk." "I'm sorry, sir, I can't forgive her. She betrayed me for a stripper," I said. He replied, "I'll give you $1 million to forgive her and marry her as planned. This is very shameful for our family. I'm sure you understand." How can I trust her? How can I be sure she won't do it again? She didn't even apologize. "I can't do it," I said. "Listen, Lucas, think about it for a day. You're a smart man. I know you understand how beneficial it would be for you to marry into our family." I thought about it. Could I sell my soul? I really loved her, and he was clearly offering me a good deal. Why not? "Sir," I said, "I'll think about it, and we'll talk tomorrow." "Thank you for being reasonable, Lucas. I know you'll be a great addition to our family." I decided to ask for something so ridiculous that he would have to agree, and I would still come out ahead if it didn't work out. I really loved her. I could live with that, I guess. I think it was a business move with a dash of love. After breakfast, I drove to the Fields' estate. Kara opened the door, threw her arms around my neck, and kissed me. I pushed her away and said, "Please don't. I'm here to see your father." "What do you mean?" she asked. "You're not going to marry me? Please, Lucas, it was a mistake." "Yes," I said, "and you didn't even apologize." She looked at me like I was crazy. I realized I had to risk everything. If I was going to sell my soul, I wanted to ensure a comfortable life for myself. I entered the office and greeted Mr. Fields. "Hello, sir. I hope I'm not disturbing you." "No, not at all. Have a seat. Have you made your decision?" "Yes, sir," I replied. "I've come up with a few conditions that must be met." He looked puzzled and said, "Go on, Lucas." "I want $1 million right after the wedding. I also want $1 million for every year of our marriage, to be transferred to my personal account on our anniversary. And finally, if she cheats on me even once, it's over, and I get $10 million. He smiled and said, "I accept your terms, Lucas, with one condition: delete the video." I said, "Have your lawyers draw up the papers, and I'll delete it from my phone and my sister's phone when we sign the agreement." "Okay, Lucas, everything will be ready by tomorrow." With that, I said goodbye and left. On my way out, I walked past Kara and didn't say anything. I was upset that my upcoming wedding had turned into a business deal. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was making a mistake. The documents were signed, the video was deleted from our phones, and we went on with our lives. I didn't tell him about the copy in my email or the copy on the disk I put in the safe. Of course, there was a clause in the contract stating that if the copy fell into the wrong hands, I would lose all the money. But I liked having something to hold over him. After a while, everything went back to normal. She was a loving wife, apologized, and promised it would never happen again. Then the day came when she announced that she was pregnant. I was indescribably happy. Her parents were thrilled. My parents were thrilled. Life was great. For about 7 months. Her water broke and we rushed to the hospital. All of our parents came to share the moment of the birth of our first child with us. I stood in the delivery room next to her, holding her hand. The doctor said, "Here it is, here's the head," and then looked at me. He pulled the baby out and one of the nurses gasped. I let go of my wife's hand and left the room. I heard her scream in the middle of the hallway. The baby was black and I wasn't. I went into the waiting room and sat down. All the parents were talking at once, wanting to hear the news. I looked at them and laughed, and I said, "Oh, it's a boy." Then I left the room and went to the elevator. My father ran after me and asked, "Son, where are you going?" "Home, Dad. I'm going home. Kara's son is black." My father didn't answer. He hugged me and went back to tell the other parents. I must have been in shock. I still can't believe how calm I was. It could have been a huge problem. Everything was going so well, and I had no idea she was cheating on me. I let my guard down and allowed myself to love her with all my heart, despite what she had done before our wedding. The disappointment of not having a child was much stronger than my feelings for her as a cheater. That's when I finally broke down. I cried over the loss of fatherhood. My only consolation, of course, was the expected paycheck. I was going to get rich off this, but I had a feeling it wasn't going to be that easy. I turned off my phone and went home to pack my things. I wasn't going to stay there. I couldn't live with her and her child. I had just finished packing my suitcase when the doorbell rang. It was my parents. I let them in and went to the kitchen to make coffee. Ava was the first to attack me. "Lucas, we know things look bad, but you married her for better or for worse. And right now, it's clearly for worse." To my parents' credit, they looked at her like she was crazy, but didn't say anything. Eva continued, "You forgave her once. You can forgive her this time." "I'm sorry, Eva. I can't forgive her for this. I'm not going to be a laughingstock and raise a child who is clearly not mine," I said. "How could you let her do this? It will be a nightmare for the whole family. How could you—" Mr. Fields shouted at me, but I interrupted him. "It's not my fault," I shouted. "I'm not to blame for her growing up to be a whore." Eva started crying. "I didn't work all the time. I didn't go on business trips and leave her alone. I didn't cheat on her. I'm not to blame for anything." I was furious and couldn't stop, so I continued, "Just write me a check and I'll leave." "A check? A check?" Mr. Fields shouted. "You think you can just walk out like that? No way. I warned you about the difficulties of marrying into this family, and you agreed." "Enough," I shouted. "The only reason I forgave her for what she did and married her was because the money protected me. I should have known she didn't care, but what's done is done. Now it's over. It's a shame. I loved her. I really thought we would be fine. But I'm not raising someone else's child." Eva said through her tears, "Put the baby up for adoption. We can say he was stillborn to explain everything. We can fix this. You can't divorce her. The scandal will be too loud." Harrison agreed. Yes, that's a great idea. We can fix everything and get out of this situation with sympathy. No, I shouted. It's over, and I expect you to honor our agreement. My parents were still silent, but I could see that my mother wanted to slap them both. What are you talking about, son? My father asked. Dad, I agreed not to call off the wedding after she cheated on me with her stripper at her bachelorette party. If she cheats on me, I get $10 million. Oh my God, my father said. Harrison joined the conversation and said, You won't get a penny of that money. I'll make sure of it. You kept a copy? Harrison shouted. Yes, I replied. That's why I did it. I'll drag you through the courts for years. You won't see a cent of that money, Harrison shouted and stood up to leave. Eva followed him sullenly. I followed them out to see them off and said, I said what I thought. You have 48 hours, or your daughter's intimate skills will become public knowledge. Eva turned around and hugged me. She whispered, I'm sorry. I love you very much. I'll make sure he makes it right. As bad as this is for us, I know it's worse for you. After they left, Harrison went crazy. Kara told him that his father was a stripper she had seen several times after the bachelorette party. She wasn't on birth control and the condom must have broken. Harrison beat the guy half to death. He was lucky to survive the beating from Harrison's thugs. They beat him 3 times, and the 3rd time they damaged his genitals so badly that they couldn't be saved. They paid me what they owed me after all. Eva took care of it. She also told Harrison that if anything happened to me, she would make sure the same thing happened to him. Thank you, Eva. Before the divorce, I met with Kara. She felt she had to explain why she did it. Of course, it was all nonsense. She said, Lucas, I shouldn't have married you. I'm just not the type of person who can settle down. All the pressure to have children and settle down was too much for me. I needed to let off some steam. I needed to relax. And that's why you slept with a stripper. Don't be rude, Lucas. It's not like you. Yes, I slept with a stripper, and now I have to live with the shame I've brought on my family. It's sad because they're not racist. If I had a black child with a black husband, they would love him just as much as they love everyone else. My father will never accept this child. I'll put him up for adoption. My mother will make sure a trust fund is set up for him. I'm sorry I did this to you, Lucas. I would never have been a good wife. With that, she walked out of my life. As I said, I wasn't as upset as I probably should have been. I came out of the situation fine. I was rich and young. I dated a lot of girls, but none of them stayed around for long. I became much more selective out of necessity and self-preservation. I didn't want to make the same mistake twice. I met Carrie by accident. She hit me with her car when I was walking through a shopping center parking lot. Luckily, she wasn't going very fast, but when I fell to the ground, I hit my head. I woke up in the hospital. My head hurt terribly, and the noise of the machines didn't help. I opened my eyes and saw a beautiful woman crying in a chair by my bed. I asked who she was, and she flinched in fright. Oh my God, you're awake. Are you okay? Do you need anything? I'll call the nurse. She ran out of the room. She was charming. She had short, stylish blonde hair. Her bright blue eyes were mesmerizing. She was tall and slender. Some would call her athletic, but when she left the room, her buttocks looked magnificent. A minute later, she returned with a nurse. Welcome, Mr. Jacobs. You have a pretty bad bump on your head and you were unconscious for several hours. But you'll survive. The doctor will give you all the details. But because of the concussion, you'll have to stay here at least overnight. She checked my vital signs and left. The woman who had been crying stopped, but then started again. She said, I'm so sorry. I didn't see you. I was sitting here panicking, hoping you were okay. Nobody told me anything. I said, Oh, you're the driver who hit me. Yes, she replied quietly. Can I at least know your name? I need to know who I'm going to sue, I said with a smile. But she didn't get the joke and ran out of the room in tears. Medically, I was fine. and was discharged. I didn't go to the police or file a report, deciding that the poor girl had suffered enough. A few weeks later, a visitor came to my house. He introduced himself as Michael Richards, the lawyer for the Carrie Scalia family. I asked, "Who is Carrie Scalia?" He replied, "She's the young woman who hit you. The family wants to avoid an unpleasant situation and has sent me with what we consider to be very generous compensation." He opened his briefcase and handed me a check for $100,000. I laughed and tore up the check. "Listen," I said, "I don't want her money. I was joking when I said I wanted to know her name so I could sue her. Actually, I thought she was a nice girl and wanted to get to know her. She ran away as if she had been scalded, and I didn't have time to stop her to explain. Please give her my apologies and tell her I'm very sorry you had to come here today because of this." Richard smiled and said, "She'll be glad. She was in a terrible state over it. She's a sensitive young girl with a big heart who was worried every day, expecting to be sued. I'll pass on your message and hope she feels better." After he left, I Googled her. It turned out that the Scalia family had recently come into money. Johnny Scalia was her father, who had made his fortune in construction. Carrie was his only daughter and the youngest of 3 children. She had 2 brothers. She was a kindergarten teacher and, compared to my ex, seemed like a pretty decent girl. There were several photos of her accompanying her father to various local events, and damn, she looked gorgeous in her expensive outfits. She was beautiful without makeup in the hospital, but with makeup, she was simply stunning. Later that evening, the doorbell rang again, and there stood Carrie herself. She looked sad and asked, "Can I come in?" "Of course," I replied. "Have a seat." I pointed to the sofa in the living room. I said, "What a surprise. I thought everything was settled after your lawyer left." She turned away and said, "I'm sorry. My father wanted to get ahead of you when you said you were going to sue. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were joking. Thank you for not taking the money. I told my father to give it to charity in your name." "That's very sweet of you, Carrie. Oh, now we can really get to know each other. I'm Lucas." She smiled and said, "I'm Carrie Scalia, the only daughter of the big, bad, scary Johnny Scalia." She laughed at her own comment. I said, "Big, bad, scary, huh?" She laughed and replied, "My dad is very intimidating. He needs to be for business, and sometimes it carries over into his personal life. I begged him not to come after you with a bill." I thought that was funny and asked, "Have you had dinner yet? I'm starving." She replied, "No, let me treat you to dinner for almost killing me." I replied, "No, I insist that I treat you. There's a great Pan-Asian restaurant around the corner that I really love." "Sounds great," she said. We had a pleasant dinner together. We talked easily, and she told me about her family and how her mother had left them for a younger lover she had picked up. I told her about my family, and she mentioned that she knew my ex through mutual friends. She asked, "Will you tell me what happened?" There are a lot of rumors going around in our circles, ranging from wild to just plain crazy. I replied, "Sure, I don't mind talking about it. She cheated on me and I broke up with her. It's pretty simple. I never hung out with her friends before we got married, and I still don't, so I didn't keep tabs on her after the divorce. That was 3 years ago. I've been over it for a long time." "Okay," she said, taking my hand on the table. "I don't like the burden of the past." We returned to my place, and when she took her keys out of her purse, I lifted her chin and kissed her gently. I said, "I had a wonderful evening. Let's do it again." She smiled and replied, "I'd like to." We had been dating for 2 months before she said it was time to introduce me to her father. I was surprised because up until that point, our relationship had been developing very slowly. Then Johnny Scalia walked into the room like he was larger than life, tall, strong, bald. His voice boomed as if he was always yelling. He made an impressive impression. He walked right up to me, grabbed my hand, and shook it so hard I wasn't sure if he had broken it. "Nice to meet you, Lucas. My daughter told me all about you. My private investigators did too, of course, he said, laughing. Nice to finally meet you, sir. I have to admit, I just Googled you. It's cheaper than a private investigator, you know. He laughed and said, All right, son, all right. I want to thank you for not suing my daughter for her terrible driving. I suppose the only long-term consequence for you is that you can't get rid of her? Yes, sir. She's a pleasant side effect. He invited us to dinner, and then we parted ways. We returned to my house and, as usual, engaged in some rather passionate kissing. I hoped that we would soon become closer, and that is exactly what happened. After a while, she stood up, took me by the hand, and led me to my bedroom. She kissed me tenderly and said, Lucas, I've fallen in love with you. I think it happened the moment I saw you lying there unconscious. Thank you for not rushing me, but I'm ready for you to take me and make me yours. Smiling, I replied, I love you too. We had sex and she said to me, I love you, Lucas. I replied, I love you too. We had been dating for 6 months when I met her mother. She was a nice lady, although a little too predatory for my taste. I felt like she was looking at me as her next victim. The first year was wonderful. On the anniversary of the day she hit me, I proposed to her. She enthusiastically agreed, and we started planning the wedding. She wasn't a monster bride, and this time I was involved in all the decisions. Her father was actually a wonderful man. He was almost the complete opposite of Harrison. We got along as if I were one of his sons. I think his working-class background helped him stay humble. While preparing for the wedding, I learned that Ava had died of cancer. Out of respect for her, I decided to go to the funeral and took Carrie with me. We offered our condolences to Harrison and Kara, where they met my fiancée, Carrie. To say there was tension between them would be an understatement. Harrison looked furious, and Kara looked sad. She never remarried and didn't look healthy. After the funeral, Carrie said, If looks could kill, you'd be dead. Mr. Fields clearly doesn't like you. I nodded and said, No, he thinks I betrayed the family when I divorced Kara. In fact, I received a very large settlement because of her infidelity. Writing that check made him so angry that he destroyed the guy who slept with Kara because he couldn't touch me. Eva made sure he left me alone. One night, a few weeks later, as I was leaving the office, I was attacked. 2 guys grabbed me and shoved me into a van. They took me to an empty warehouse and, just like in the movies, tied me to a chair. They had a stun gun or a cattle prod, and they beat me with it over and over on my face and stomach. I was vomiting, choking on blood, and losing consciousness from the blows and pain, but when I came to, they started again. I was there for several hours, I think, because the sun went down. I hoped that Carrie would come looking for me, because we had planned to go out for dinner. But I didn't really believe she would find me in an empty warehouse. At some point, they stopped beating me and left me alone for what seemed like an eternity. I was too weak to resist, even to scream. Suddenly, I heard the door open. Through my swollen, blurry eyes, I saw Harrison walk over to me and punch me in the face. There was an expression of rage on his face that I had never seen before. He said, I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Your inability to swallow your pride and ego has brought you to this. All you had to do was stay in the family. You would have been happy, rich, and protected, and you would have given me grandchildren. To abandon my daughter over something as trivial as sex, when you could have had any woman you wanted if you had been careful while you were with her, is senseless. You have disgraced the family, and you will pay for it. Eva, I can no longer protect you. I can, Kara said unexpectedly. Leave him, Dad. You've done enough. It's not his fault. It's all me. No, baby. He has to pay. He stole our money. He has to pay for breaking up our family, Harrison said passionately. I couldn't help thinking he had lost his mind. A moment later, Kara hugged him and said, I understand. The front door burst open and several police officers stormed into the room. They were followed by medics, and behind them were Carrie and her father. Harrison was handcuffed and taken away. I was released, and Carrie hugged me so tightly that it hurt. Kara came over to me and said, "I'm sorry, Lucas. You didn't deserve that." He snapped for some reason. Whether it was stress from the business or his mother's illness and death, he's not the same person anymore. She turned to Carrie and said, "Please be better to him than I was. He's a good man, and I regret every day that I lost him." Carrie hugged her and said, "Thank you for helping me find him. I don't even want to think about what would have happened if it weren't for your help." Kara nodded and walked away in tears. Soon after that, I was recovering in the hospital. Carrie seemed to be there all the time. I was conscious and thinking clearly, so I asked her how she found me. She replied, "When you didn't show up for our meeting, I called you, but you didn't answer. I had a really bad feeling because you had just told me how Eva had protected you but died. I went to your house, but you weren't there. Then I saw your car at work, but the security guard said you had left. I asked if they had any surveillance camera footage from the parking lot. He refused, but I gave him $100 to turn on the camera. Then we saw the van and the guys who took you away. I called the police and told them what had happened. Hours passed and no one knew where Fields was. We were losing hope. I went to Kara, who said that the police had spoken to her and asked where her father was. I told her what had happened to you and that we suspected her father. She didn't seem surprised. She went into the house and printed out a list of properties owned by her father. She knew which ones were vacant. I called my father, and Kara and I split up and started looking for her father's car or van. We could only hope that they had taken you to one of his buildings and not to a forest reserve, a lake, or somewhere else. We got lucky, and it was the second house Kara checked. She called the police, then us, and we got there as fast as we could. The cops were worried about traps or ambushes, so Kara volunteered to go in with a microphone. She knew her dad and his thugs wouldn't touch her. "Wow," I said. "I'm so glad you found me. You saved my life." "Oh, my love, I have no life without you. Now you need to get better so we can get married. If we wait too long, my dress won't fit." I choked up and started crying, realizing what she meant. "You'll be beautiful, even if we have to cut a hole for your pregnant belly." We hugged each other in tears, and this time the pain of the embrace was worth it. "I'm not going to repeat myself. I'm not going to marry you. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I thought you loved me. You know I love you, for Christ's sake. I tell you that every time I see you." "Then why can't we get married?" "Donna, we've been through this 1,000 times. You know why," I said, getting out of the bed where Donna and I had just made love and heading for the shower, since my shift was starting in an hour. Maybe not 1,000 times, but we had discussed it every few days. Ever since Donna moved in with me more than 2 years ago. She knew perfectly well why marriage was impossible for me. I'm a cop, and every day I see the consequences of domestic violence. Thinking about what just happened, I understand why other couples try to kill each other. The water felt nice on my face, but it felt even better to have Donna's hands on my body. She knew she had gone too far today. Of course, I forgave her right away. She had a way of making my anger disappear without a trace. God, I would do anything for her. Well, almost anything. When Donna takes a shower with me before I go to work, I feel like a king. My God, how I love this woman. At 10:45 p.m., I was at the station. It was the same every night shift, 15 minutes of preparation, and then starting patrols at 11. Tonight was no different from any other night in my 8 years on the job, and I still hated the first 15 minutes of every night I was on duty. Most of the guys enjoyed the downtime before the patrol started, but I just wanted to get on with my job. People need our help, and we're just fooling around. The other guys tell me, "Will, you just don't have a sense of humor." Well, of course I do. I just don't show it at work. I can tell more dirty jokes than a stand-up comedian. But there's a time for jokes and a time when seriousness is important. Ask Barton. Bart had been my partner for the last 4 years. I bet he'd heard every joke I knew 10 times. I tossed Bart the keys to our car. "You drive." He knew me well enough to know from that gesture that I wasn't having the best day. I usually drove, and Bart rode in the front passenger seat, noticing everything going on around our car like a radar. "Are you okay, Will?" I just nodded at him. We went through the list of addresses, just like every night. We got into the patrol car and pulled out of the parking lot. Bart turned left. I always turned right, and tonight, for the first time, I noticed that everything looked different. It was a feeling that grew as we completed the first hour of our patrol. I had a hard time concentrating on my work, but my intuition told me that something was about to change. At midnight, we stopped at a burger joint for a cup of coffee. Then we headed down the South Main Street to check out the hookers. 2 or 3 girls were wandering the streets, but they weren't bothering anyone, so we moved on. While this was just routine surveillance, I thought about my relationship with Donna. It was coming to an end, and I just didn't know when. Sooner or later, Donna would insist on something I couldn't give her. And that would be the end of us. I felt empty inside. At 2:15 a.m., the radio made me jump. David 37, 10 to 16 on 619 Ridgecrest. I reached for the microphone. "Central, David 37, we're 10-8 and 10-76. I memorized the address. Damn, a domestic disturbance call. I don't need that shit today. Bart turned off the lights in the cabin, and we headed out on the call. Almost every type of call becomes routine after a while, but domestic 10 to 16s are never the same. It's one of the most dangerous situations you can get into. With emotions running high, a minor argument can quickly escalate into violence. Both sides can be aggressive, and the police are usually seen as the enemy rather than peacemakers. "David 37, we're 1023, I said into the microphone, letting the dispatcher know we had arrived. It was a prestigious neighborhood. There was nothing ordinary about this call. A crowd of onlookers had already begun to gather around the house. As Bart and I approached the door, we heard screams that prompted us to call 911. Without saying a word to each other, we both drew our weapons. Bart had the good sense to try the door handle before letting me kick it down. We searched every room, quickly making our way to the source of the disturbance. Before I tell you what we found, I have to say that working in law enforcement, you come across some of the strangest and most unimaginable situations. Truth is stranger than fiction, and if that's true, then we discovered the embodiment of that saying. What we saw was undoubtedly the stuff of books. When we entered the master bedroom, ready to shoot, it quickly became clear that this was not a 10 to 16. There were 3 people in the room. 2 were making love, with their backs to us. They were still unaware of our presence. The 3rd man was handcuffed to a chair standing to the side. He was completely naked except for a leather hood over his head. Bart glanced at me with a look that said, "Oh, shit," and froze. "Police, don't move!" he barked. All 3 quickly turned and looked at us. The man behind the woman started to say something, but I approached him from behind, ordered him to shut up, and handcuffed him. Then I covered Bart while he handcuffed the woman. Well, it was a beautiful little scene. The woman was crying and trying to cover herself with her hands behind her back. The man on the chair was silent, but clearly crying. A real riot was brewing that would need to be quelled. The man pretending to be a dog tried to speak again, and I advised him to shut up for the last time. By this time, Bart had covered the woman with a bathrobe. I approached the bound man. When I removed the hood from his head, I immediately saw his red and swollen eyes. He had clearly started crying long before Bart and I entered the room. I took the gag out of his mouth and told him not to say anything yet. He nodded understandingly and remained silent. "Who do we start with, Will?" "I think the woman. She was the one making all the noise. In the meantime, call dispatch and tell them we won't need backup. I'm going to ask you a few questions. Please don't try to explain anything. Just answer my questions. Do you understand?" She nodded in agreement. "Okay. What's your name?" "Marcy Schumann." Bart wrote everything down in his notebook. "And the guy on the chair?" "Mark Schumann." "And the other gentleman?" "He's Matt, I think." I looked at him. "Martin," he said. "Now, Marcy, tell me, for God's sake, what are we all doing here?" "Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Mark has this fantasy of watching another man sleep with me." "You're a dirty, lying whore." "Okay, stop. Let's do this differently, Bart. Keep an eye on these two while I hear her side of the story. Marcy, I want you to come with me to another room." I helped her to her feet, and the robe she was wearing fell open, revealing most of her charms. I unclipped the handcuffs and let her put it on properly to cover herself, then cuffed her again. We went to the kitchen. For some reason, it seemed like the best place to question her. "Okay, Marcy, let's try again." "Well, like I said, my husband has this fantasy." "Wait, let's go back a little. How did you find out about his idea?" "A couple of weeks ago, I found a book in his coat pocket. It described various stories, and some of them had passages underlined. They were all about women who slept in front of their husbands. Does that appeal to you?" "Oh, God, no. I decided to do it for Mark." "So you didn't want to do it, well, I thought you liked it." "Not exactly. I just wanted to convince Mark that I liked it." "I'm lost here. Why did you do that?" "You see, Mark works so hard for us. He gives me everything I want. I love him so much that I had to give him what he wanted. Besides, we don't do it as often as we used to." "But Marcy, Mark didn't look like he was enjoying himself. Did you talk to him about it?" "No, I just did what he read in the book." She began to see the light. "So what was in the book?" "Well, one of the pages was folded over like a bookmark. I decided that my husband must have liked what was written there the most, so I did everything just like in the story. I sat him down in this chair, went to the bar, and picked up a man." "Marcy, are you saying that you went to a bar, picked up a man you knew nothing about, brought him home, and had unprotected sex with him? And all because Mark doesn't make love to you as often as he did when you were younger? Is that right?" All the blood drained from her face when she realized how wrong her plan was. "Oh, God, what have I done? I thought he wasn't telling me because he didn't want to hurt my feelings. I just wanted Mark to be happy. God, I love him so much." "Marcy, I'm going to take off your handcuffs. I want you to make yourself a strong cup of coffee. If you can, make one for me too. I think we could all use one until this is over." She nodded resignedly. Returning to the bedroom, I took Bart aside and told him everything. After listening to me, he just shook his head. I walked over to the dog handler and took off his handcuffs. "I want you to get dressed and get out of here fast." "But I need a ride. You don't think I'm going to walk back to the bar where my car is, do you? It's almost 6 miles away." Looking at his wedding ring, I suggested, "Maybe I could take you to the police station and ask your wife to pick you up." "No, I understand everything, and I'll be happy to walk there." I thought so. Bart was busy freeing Mark from his bonds. While the man was getting dressed, I went to get some water. Taking the glass from me, he drank it in one gulp. "Mark, for some reason I don't think you fantasize about Marcy sleeping with strange men." "No, of course not, damn it. Why would anyone want that for their wife?" "Well, Mark, The world is full of all kinds of surprises. In that case, I'm telling you right now that it's not for me. I love Marcy. Or at least I did until tonight. I could see him getting worked up. I had to get him under control before we got a 10-16. Listen, Mark, I want you to calm down. We don't have to take you to the station, do we? Oh, God, no, I'd be ruined if this ever got out. Okay. So Marcy made a very big mistake. She understands that now. It started with a book you brought home. Can you tell me about it? What book? I have no idea what you're talking about. Okay, but she told me she did all this because she loves you very much. Marcy, that's a strange way to prove your love. Well, I can agree with that, Mark. Let's just calm down, have some coffee, and talk about it. Bart informed dispatch that we were fine and would be busy for a while longer. We went to the kitchen and Marcy poured coffee for everyone. She sat at the table with her hands over her eyes, trying to stop the flow of tears. We all sat down at the table, and Bart asked Marcy if she still had the book her husband had brought home. She left the kitchen, and we all sat silently at the table, waiting for her. When she returned and handed the book to Bart, he passed it to me. I looked for the dog-eared page and read the underlined part of the story. It was exactly as Marcy had described. I handed the book to Mark and asked him to read the underlined passage aloud. I want her to know pleasure, the pleasure of another man. My love for her only grows when she lets me watch. She's in control. Mark couldn't go on. He was crying along with Marcy. Mark, where did you get this book? He stared at it for a full minute before it finally dawned on him. Oh, shit. I found it on the train. It was on the seat next to me when I was coming home last night. I noticed how dirty it was and put it in my pocket so some kid wouldn't find that filth. I was going to throw it away at the station, but I forgot. Marcy ran out of the room in tears. Mark sat slumped in his chair, his face contorted in obvious pain. We all sat in silence while he tried to compose himself. When he finally spoke, he looked at me. Officer, this may sound crazy. I hate what she did. And at the same time, I love her so much for doing it. How can I turn away a woman who loves me enough to do that just for me? It may seem senseless to you, but right now I feel like I love Marcy more than I ever have before. Marcy must have heard him from the other room. She ran up to Mark with her arms wide open and hugged him tightly. I looked at Bart and saw a tear running down his cheek. We got up to leave and thanked them for the coffee. Marcy walked us to the door and kissed Bart on the cheek. She held me in her arms, looking into my eyes. Thank you for saving my marriage. And she leaned over and kissed me gently, too. Marcy, I don't want to ruin your mood, but you should see a doctor, just in case. She blushed when she realized what I meant. I'll call in the morning and make an appointment. You're such a wonderful person. I wish you had been the one at the bar. Now it was my turn to blush. When we walked out the door, Bart nudged me in the side. Hey, partner, I won't tell Donna about your new girlfriend if you don't say a word about my tears. Deal, I agreed, slapping him on the back of the head. We drove back to the station to write our reports before everyone started asking about the call during the day. It had been a good night for us. It's rare to have a domestic call where everyone leaves happy. It was a first for Bart and me. Hey, Bart, have you heard the story about the 3 old ladies sitting on a park bench? Yeah, and I don't want to hear it again. The reports were filed and the new shift took over. I said goodbye to Bart, promising to see him later that evening. I made a couple of stops on my way home. Donna was still asleep, and I carefully climbed into bed, trying not to disturb her. I took her hand and held it, thinking how lucky Mark was. His wife loved him beyond measure. She was willing to put everything aside for what she thought he wanted. Their problem last night was just an accident. It wasn't done out of malice or Marcy's dissatisfaction. As twisted as it sounds, what happened was an act of love. She loved Mark so much that she was willing to break her wedding vows to fulfill his fantasy. I fell asleep, smiling. I was jolted awake by Donna's scream. She made me jump out of bed and rush out of the bedroom before I was fully awake. She met me at full speed in the hallway. Donna was on top of me in an instant, her arms and legs wrapped around me. Her face was buried in my shoulder, and I could feel tears streaming down her beautiful face. I turned her around and carried her to the bed, laying her on her back. Finally, she let go of me and sat up, admiring the wedding ring I had slipped on her finger while she was asleep. Tears were still streaming down her face, but I could tell from her smile that they were tears of joy. "It's so beautiful, Will. I love you so much." "I love you too, Donna." "But what's changed?" "I was a little slow, baby. I just realized that I'm more afraid of losing you than I am of getting married." "That's it?" "I know you, Will. Something happened last night." "Well, it's a long story. Let's just say I met a woman who loves her man more than you can imagine." "As much as I love you?" "Oh, God, Donna, I pray we never have to find out. Please, never love me too much." "I don't understand you, but I know I love you so much that I plan to lose the extra weight I need to get out of my mom's wedding dress before our wedding." "Well, I can handle that kind of love. Sounds like my kind of diet."